Hello, everybody. My name is Yesid Ortega, and this is a video recording of the workshop that we recently did for the Art and Research Collective. So I am going to share my screen in a moment for you to know what this is about. There you go. We got it. So again, my name is Yesid Ortega. I am co-founder of the Art and Research Collective. This is a collective of researchers who are looking at how we do research in different ways, more artistic, more collaborative, more creative, and that's how we like to do to explore the boundaries or the beyond of what qualitative research is. And then today, we're gonna do this presentation, which is about playing with data. And a little bit of a warning for everybody is that this presentation today is not about arts research or using art as the phenomenon to study, as the object of study. But this is a topic that is very deep to me because we are exploring and playing with the data that you have already collected. Some of you, in your research project, you have collected data in the form of surveys, in the form of the perhaps interviews, perhaps you have transcripts, perhaps you also have been analyzing policy, you have documents, perhaps you have photographs, or you have videos, or you have recorded some sounds. So today is about exploring the possibilities of artistically what to do with this data and play with it, and also use it as a way to expand a little bit the research process as well, but also how you disseminate knowledge. And the presentation roughly is about introducing ourselves, who we are, and then a little bit of the theory behind that we use here at Art and Research Collective, and we'll provide a few examples of how I played with data in my own work, and then I will explain something that you could try on your own and let me know in the comments, in the chat box, or the comments in the video comment section, about how you would like to explore your data, how would you like to play it with the data at the end. In the presentation, we didn't do the gallery walk, meaning that everybody who did the workshop presented their work, but didn't get the chance to actually see each other's work. But this is something that I encourage you. If you, for some reason, you ended up doing some of the work that I'm presenting here, please feel free to let me know. Send us an email to the Art and Research Collective, or put a comment again to let us know how you have engaged with this type of um, engagement. But also, if you have any questions or anything that you have beyond this presentation, let us know. So let's get it started right now. One of the things that I wanted to mention before starting is about who I am. And then part of playing with data, it's about also playing with the idea of who you are, who you get to be, and just playing around using art to help you find perhaps a different version of who you are, or play around about a version of you that you have not necessarily show to the world. So this image that you see here is the result of me treating my own digital data, in other words, my own photograph of who I am as a researcher, as a canvas, right? So I use artificial intelligence, I guess, when it was not necessarily that popular back in 2020, 2021, 2022, maybe around that time. That's when I created these. There was a machine that I forgot which one was at that time. I don't recall right now, but I invited the machine to play with my image data, and I play with the colors. I play with the palette, and I keep prompting the machine to give me an image of myself, or this photograph that looks like a pastel or acrylic, or and use these colors. And I started to play around my own self image. And this is perhaps a message for you as a researcher to say to yourself, for example, who I am in the process of collecting data, who I am as a researcher. And that's one of the things that I always tell folks out there that as researchers, we should start with us, meaning who I am in the process of collecting data, who I am in relation to my participants, who I am in the context. So for the purposes of this presentation, I am an artist, I am a researcher, I explore art research, I explore art as not research, I explore research doing art or art doing research and so on and so forth, different examples that I will tell you in a minute. So I also want to know who you are. So if you're watching this video, please let us know in the comments what research you are doing right now, or what research you intend to do, or what research you are interested in doing as well, right? And if so, please type it there so I will be happy to read who you are and perhaps expand on this conversation about what it means for you to be a researcher and whether you have played with data or not, or what type of data are you collecting, how do you massage the data, so to speak. Okay, and the next slide is an exercise we did in the workshop. And we asked this question, how does data or how does research feel? And I gave an example, like these two examples, thinking of textures, but also thinking on colors as well, based on the work that you have done, your research work or your collection of data, or perhaps your analysis of the data or dissemination of the data. How does this feel? So I have these two examples. One, my data feels like a rough burlap because it has not been easy to collect the data. Or I can also say my research is a deep forest green. And I can say that because collecting data or going into the field somehow feels like entering into territories that are thick and deep, and then you have to constantly discover it and rediscover what's happening, especially because I do a lot of ethnographic work, right? So what I'm gonna do here in the next slide is I will show you some categories, textures and colors. I call it data feelings. And then in the comment section of this video, perhaps you wanna use these ones or others to describe how you feel about data. What are your thoughts about data right now, or data collection or research in general? And you can use some of these vocabulary, like for complexity or messiness, is strong or fluid, is it organic, is it soft, is it a structure? So you can use some of these textures, how it feels, but also the colors can tell you the mood about it, right? Like for dark, earthy colors, maybe it's a difficult time, or perhaps blues and yellows or kaleidoscopic means something bright, something wonderful, joyful, etc. Okay, feel free to let me know in the comment section your feelings or emotions about data. The next thing I wanted to mention is for us, Art and Research Collective, we as collective doing research along the lines of arts. So we base mainly our work on arts-based research and creativity, right? So we position art not necessarily as a way to disseminate, ooh, like we're doing it today, but also as a method of inquiry, so we can keep asking questions. And you will see later in our process of create collaborative creative inquiry how art it becomes beyond the tool, because we aren't just making art about data. We are discovering new meanings through the making of the data, for example. And in general terms, let me talk about arts-based research also as a methodological framework, so to speak, that uses all types of creative arts, such as the visual arts, performance, creative writing, as a primary way to, investigate, analyze, and communicate the differences, the difficulties, the stumbling blocks and complexities of our human experience as portrayed by different types of arts as well. Another thing that we use for us um, is sorry, let me go back this. So we're talking about arts-based research now. After arts-based research, now we're talking about decolonial research as well. So with decolonial research, is sort of the framework as well that we use as a methodological approach. Why? Because in a sense, as some of you might know, decoloniality or research using a decolonial lens is about asking the big questions of power structures and imbalances and social injustices as well. And sometimes to do so, according to Mignolo and Kathy Walsh, is about decentering those power relations or questioning those power relations and help us unlearn what we have learned because of that colonial past as well. So in other words, some people call about and decolonizing the mind. But for us, we call it undiscipline the mind because somehow we have been disciplined on what to do, how to collect data. So in a sense, for us is to go beyond that and undiscipline the mind and our thinking because we truly believe that the coloniality needs to challenge the Western European hegemony of what it means to do research, especially for example, the written report and why not that sometimes Eurocentric forms of knowledge engagement and research only validates one form of knowledge, and for us we value all different forms of knowledge production and knowledge engagement and research like oral, visual, and embodied ways of knowing as well. So the last but not least, and this is one of the most important things that we are in the process of continue working a framework or a methodology, so to speak, that is collaborative creative inquiry, right? And it's collaborative creative inquiry refers basically to how we put the emphasis that knowledge is co-constructed but by playing together between the researcher and the researched or the participants, and we try to break that boundary between the lone researcher or that line that sometimes is traced between I am the researcher and you are the participant. And somehow we try to come together and collaborate on different types of research projects. So we ask questions about the nature of research or the phenomena creatively, but also collaboratively. And that's what we do. So what I'm gonna do now is to show you a few examples of what I have been doing trying to engage with data and play with data. For example, in the image that you see here, I've been working on doing collages using actually magazines, calling out purposely to represent the themes that emerge from the research project. So on the left, you will see how humanity is at the center of the research project, and there are other words or themes or key nodes of the research project, for example, radical visions or the school in itself, the distinct perspectives of the school, support visions, the difference between us versus them that have been positioned in language education in many marginalized communities as well. And one of the ones that I love to talk about a lot is this one that you can see here. The on the left top is a blue, and on the right bottom there is sort of fire because it symbolizes heaven and hell as portrayed by my participants when they say a seat for us, the school, the classroom, my class is heaven, meaning it's a safe space for my students to take them away from hell, and hell for the teachers and for the school is the outside, right? The violent experiences that the students somehow experience, right? Like drug addiction, unemployment, violence, gangs recruiting, you name it. And on the right, we have another collage that I made based on an activity that I've been working on, like trying to to understand the big themes about capitalism, about neoliberalism, and globalization, and how these affect us, the academics as well. And then you're putting a little bit together what how does this look in terms of um, images as well, or words: modern slavery, your career, search for security research, welcome here, or sometimes you're not welcome here. What's your impact or non-society, and the impact of technology, etc. So this is just one example of what you could do with the data that you already have collected. Another example that I always like sharing with folks is that for me, at least in the in recent past, when you create theoretical frameworks, or when your research creates, or the outcome of your research is creating a theoretical framework, typically, and we see these frameworks with circles or Venn diagrams and arrows moving up and down, right? But for me, I said to myself for my dissertation and the work that I've done, I don't want these frameworks to be represented like this, so linear and so, I guess, Western Eurocentric, because that's how we've been trained in the academic world. So I asked a friend of mine to, or I commissioned to paint my vision of my theoretical framework, or the framework that emerged from my work. And you can see that he painted somehow what I asked, an individual, a person connected with the land and the water and the animals living and not living, and your heart and your vision about the future to be bright for everybody, and connected with the seeds. You can see there are some seeds here as well, right? And how you as an individual that is portrayed as a non-binary person, because it could be anybody, you as a researcher or a student or educator or whatever. So you are the person who's embodying this onto epistemological mindset, so to speak. And then that image was translated into my recent book, Pluriversal Applied Linguistics, as the framework that emerged of this. Yeah, you see it in Spanish because that's how it was emerged. The being, the ser, pertenecer, belonging, and llegar a ser, becoming as well. And then you have in two hands buenos vivires, and then the other half you have sentir pensar, and in your heart, in indigenous language of Colombia, the muiscubun, pucuicui as well. So you see how this piece of arts, little by little, is turning into an academic piece. But not only that, because I also like playing around with this media, and then I created a t-shirt that you can wear as well, right? And you can see that, you can see in the t-shirt here, right? Let's see. Here you can see how it's depicted there, the ontoepistemological oneness, and how you translate the original painting into the framework, but also into a t-shirt that sort of describes your work. So in other words, you are embodying your own framework, so to speak. So look at how another example of how you can play with your research concepts as well. Let me give you with the next example is about color, and how playing with colors, playing with the emotional aspects of colors and data as well. So for me, I love painting. I love Jackson Pollock, and I have painted in the past different things, mostly splatter painting. And one of these one is an example of how the data revealed to me in different two different colors. I believe one is the red splatter across the painting, depicting the pain and the struggle of the participant, and even myself experiencing the violence in an impoverished context. And the blue is, well, the representation of the contexts and being struck by the violence. I know it looks a little bit harsh, and I hope not to, and I hope you, as the viewer, don't feel bad about this, but that's how it is. And unfortunately, this is how the feelings of many people in Colombia and many post conflict countries as well. How this is. So this is how you can play with the colors, but also with media, because this is canvas and this is acrylic on canvas as well. So another example that I can give you, it's about textures and patterns of temporality of research, and I explain in a manner the pluriversality of the complexity and diversity of the experiences that I work with. So When I started the research project, I started sewing this circle or spiral, I guess. And as I was going through, I was sewing pieces and pieces based on on the work that I was doing, but also to the mark the timeline of my work, like one day, 1 week, 1 month, and different aspects of that. But then after that, I started adding new things representing different trajectories of life, like the connections with the students, their connections with the teachers, their connections with the community and the land and Colombia, and then the connections with other indigenous communities that I was working with or are being engaged with. Who resonated with my work? Many indigenous communities in Colombia, for example, the Nasa Paez use the spiral as a way to signify the cycle of life. So for me, this is my cycle of life as a researcher. And more recently, I have been playing around as well in a project that I have. It's called the ethnographies of the boss. So I've been playing around with the relationships between the boss, the pieces, the people who come into the boss, the languages and their cultures. And this piece of kind of sewing serves as a permanent and analog artifact of the city's ephemeral digital noise by using the needle with the machine or hands as a stylus and the fabric as a screen of our performance in the city. So I bridge somehow the gap between the high-speed digital disruption and the slow intentional craft of this embroidery. So you can feel it and touch it as a tactile meditation of the work that I have done. So in a sense, I try to connect my life, this piece of art, but also the I guess the worldview, the sentiments of the research that I've been doing, if you will. Another piece of example that I wanted to tell you is like you use your transcripts or you can use your policy documents or curriculum documents or perhaps lesson plans that you have or even notes that you have taken and transform them into something that we call blackout poetry. So I'll give you a couple of examples and I even put it here where I start and where I finish. So start, I wish all high particular engagement to better relevant interest at the bottom of hope. You will find language more constructive, consider feel it elsewhere. So I use different types of data to transform this data into piece of art like poetry. And here is another one that I use similar to connect us, connect language, to play around with language as well. There is another one here as well that I took from another piece of document that I have. This one was done digitally, but this one was done with the actual document that I was working on about indigenous things, indigenous engagement, poetry, literature, etc. And then I did try to do the similar thing and try to connect the dots, connect words that resonated to me at that moment. So, for example, younger editors encounter human rights authentic for exclusion, right? So, trying to connect, play around with words, playing around with circles and lines and colors, and all of this has some kind of meaning. And the last but not least, this is I have a typewriter. I love typewriting because I used to, since forever I have on my typewriter. So I did this sort of poem in response to some work and conversation that I was doing a few years back with indigenous people, and sort of I responded to the indigenous people in this way, in this using this poem, saying, You are not alone. I am with you. We are with you at all times. Inside you are the histories that brought you here, your connections, your ancestors, your soul, your mind, but overall, your heritage. I'm with you. You are not alone. So you can see how you can use your data to play around to create experimental poetry as well. So I do a lot of experimental things, as you can see. Most of my work in art is experimental, and you can use your data to play around these ways. And the last but not least, I am also have been engaged with sound art for the past. 25 years of my life in Colombia, the United States, Canada, the UK, and elsewhere. And as such, I like experimenting. So a few years back, I published this article, Symbolic Annihilation, Processes Influencing English Language Policy and Teaching Practice. And in this article, I talk about a triad of systems, so to speak, that have effective English language learning in different communities, I guess. And then I try creating a piece of experimental art to see how capitalism, neoliberalism, globalization, how might sound, and connecting one, two, and three, how they all combine create a symbolic annihilation, right? So I created that, and a few months later, somebody came to me and said, "Let's do a tape, cassette tape, with the sounds." In this now, this item is very exclusive and has been sold out. I don't have my copy anymore. So this is just another example. How you engage with research, how you engage with how you engage with your data. And the last but not least, here I transform the idea of the framework of symbolic annihilation into a t-shirt that you can actually wear to conferences and present yourself and your work. All right. And then circling back again, this idea of collaboration or collaborative creativity and collaborative increase. So I currently collaborating with Dr. Peter J. Woods in Nottingham about our experiences in doing sound art, noise, and experimental music. So you can look for this article that we both wrote. We created a framework as well, and the framework is called braided sound. I think I forgot, um, but it's about braiding the sounds, right? Like a braid. And it's very, very good, this idea of how it moves around these ideas of playing with uh, themes, playing with topics, playing with concepts, playing with theories, but also putting it back to materiality in the t-shirt and the cassette tape and the sound in itself and the creation of an album. So that all of this is pulled together in this final article from last year. And last but not least, I think digital art. This is what I've been working in the past few months, I guess. I've been working on an ongoing project that I call the ethnographies of the bus, in which I record sounds and videos and photographs of the city, and I'm trying to understand the languages and the cultures and how they interact in the bus and how these are representations of the city, multilingual, multicultural citizens of the city. So I've been doing a lot of data collection of these photographs and sounds in the street, and then I took this particular one because it represents the Toronto Transit Commission bus, classic bus, as a hub of those citizens exchanging their cultures and their languages. And I can't explain more about that project, but because this is about me playing with the art. So I played with this art using a technique called glitch art. And then I glitched the document, sorry, the photograph. And then I used this one, another technique in the glitch process, which is not blending, but I guess how should we call this? Not blending, but the melting. Now I remember melting. So let's see. So you see how it melts now. But this is not only it. Next week, uh, on February 7th, for those who are watching now, probably could be late. I'm doing my first solo exhibition, and I bring in all of the results of me playing with this data to an exhibition at a gallery, and I have these prints of this particular data for sale. Let's see. Oh, you won't be able to say. There you go. So I created some examples, limited editions of these prints for purchase. So if you want to purchase my print, and if I still have them, by all means, please let me know. But yeah, I will be presenting this at the exhibition next week. And this is how I've been playing with data, everybody. And the last but not least, you can also talk about alt lit or alternative literature. You can use your topics, your content, your data, your themes, your excerpts or ideas into literature. This is a fanzine, micro fanzine that I use to play around the idea or the concept of epistemic desire. And then I just said, I want to do a fanzine and copy it and give it to friends a year ago exactly. But before going into that direction, I just wanted to show you this, how it looks really quick. It's gonna take a second. Um, of how it looked, to play around with words, with sentences, with phrases, with cutouts from magazines, etc. To depict, right? To see how these look in real life. As a researcher, you can also do scrapbooking. Either you took photographs, print them out, and put them on a scrapbook, or pieces that you have collected in your field and actually put them in there and give them some meaning. So this is not my example, but you can inspire yourself to do a scrapbooking. I will do one of these ones at some point in the future because I really like this technique to play with the data, to play with your work. And like I said, I found this one online that I found it very interesting. And perhaps I need to give credit to the person. But yeah, you can use that thread to connect themes if you want to, a little bit of tape and connecting themes with photographs, with ideas that you have collecting throughout your your research. So if you there, you can practice this at home and let me know in the comments how you did, right? So for us, we are the Art and Research Collective, and we came up with the methodology, so to speak, the Collaborative Creative Inquiry or CCI methodology, which is like a cycle of things that you keep in mind when engaging with creativity and collaboration, but also inquiry, right? Research, which is you can start at any of these points, but we suggest with the questioning and the provocation you can also explore and create. Then you engage with others and share what you have done. Then you reflect on you have done. Then practicing refers to how you put all these ideas in action. And later you can adapt or transfer or ask questions about how would you transfer this. So for the exercise today, you can, as a provocation, you might want to think, what data do we have? What data do you have? Or perhaps you don't have any data today. And what does it mean for you? So you might want to ask that question as a provocation. Then, as a way of exploring and creating, you will creatively explore the possibilities of what to do with the data. So, today I gave you tons of examples of how to play around with your data or your research project. So, try to come up with some idea that you think you could do and explore it and try to create it if you want to, right? And when you finish, then you engage with your data and the piece of art, and then you share it to your peers. You can respond to any comments, for example, as well. And the last part section of this is the reflect and practicing. So it's asking questions about how would you put this data out in the world. And adapting and transferring is about asking the question, how does your output or piece of art that you create transfers to communities, colleagues, researchers, academics, artists, community, etc. For example, in the example of the symbolic annihilation, so I wrote the paper is out there to be read by academics. Then I created the piece of audio that artists in audio or sound music, they can listen to it as a piece of art. Some others who are collectors of cassette tape can also grab the physical thing of what it means, right? And I created the t-shirt. As you can see, I have it today. And you can purchase it and embody the, the knowledge. And then you circle back to connections. My connection with Peter J. Woods is related to that, actually, how we can all start connecting with other communities. And that's the collaborative part of this project, right? So one thing you could do that we're not gonna do it here, but I encourage you to do. There are three examples that I'm gonna give you. One of those is get an excerpt from your interviews, get 10 words that resonate with you, create a sentence around it. In other words, use the 10 words to create sentences, or use a sentence with each one of the words. Revise the sentence or the sentences, create like a micro poem, give them a title, present it to your peers, friends, colleagues, right? And if you have anything, you can always put it in the comment section for us to have a look at it. And I also have couple more examples that you can do. Like get that excerpt from your interview, circle the words and connect them with a line if you want, similar to the example that I gave you, then you can present it as well. Another way you could do is to get magazines and get creative and cut out words from magazines that represent your research, paste them on a piece of paper, and also present it similar to the collage that I presented you. So I encourage you, the viewer today, to try to do one of these ones and see what you get and share with us. So let us know. I'm very curious about what you would do and how would you share your piece of art or how you have played with your data. Another one that you could do and that I have shown you the example, you can go to this website, poemgenerator.org UK. Then you want to feed this with a few words from your data, and it will create a poem for you automatically. And this, the interesting thing is like I have used this one for a while when it was not popular by AI, because now you can do that with the AI, but I just don't like, for the purposes of this exercise, I don't use AI, but you could use AI and say, hey, can't you create a poem using these words from my data? Of course, AI is going to give you the poem, which is fine. You can also do it, but I encourage you to use this one that is not necessarily AI generated. So here's an example of when I use different words related to decolonizing and decolonization, and this is what the um, poem generated by the machine was. Another thing that you could do just as we wrap up for today's video is you can create to others or with others. So here I encourage you as a researcher, can you write a letter to your data? What is your data today? Is it an interview? Is it a policy document? Is it a curriculum? Is it a recording? Is it a video? Now imagine that you're writing a letter and then start your letter with dear data, and then you write a letter to them. Or you can write a letter to your participants. I know some of you have worked with participants, like human participants. Maybe you can write a letter. And in real life, you can write a letter or a postcard and give it to them as a token of appreciation for the work. I know it's customary for researchers to give back to the community, but I think this one it's more a more personalized human way of doing things, right? And last but not least, one thing that I always encourage folks to do, which I didn't show it, is to draw your research site or paint your research site. If it's a school, try to paint it. It's a classroom, try to paint the classroom. What else? If it is a piece of curriculum, well, how would you paint your curriculum or your policy or whatever it is? Try to paint the site of where you are conducting your research. So a few takeaways and reflections just to finish up and wrap up. Share your thoughts on the workshop and let us know what you think in the comments on the section of this video. We want to hear from you. And that's it from me today. If you have any questions, comments, or perhaps complaints, or perhaps you want to hire me through Art and Research Collective to expand on this, we're going to be launching more workshops soon, or expanding this one that is more hands-on in a different series of more workshops related to creativity and art-based research. Let me know, let us know, send us an email. That's it for today. Thank you very much. Bye.